Hey everybody, we are back for our latest episode of Boardroom RevOps, where we're bringing you valuable tips from RevOps experts so you can make it to the C-suite. I'm James, the co-founder of Account Aim, the RevOps BI platform. Super excited to welcome Olga Traskova to the show today. She's the VP of RevOps at BirdEye. Olga, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, James. Excited to be here.
I was catching up with Olga recently, and something she said caught my attention. She mentioned how she had one big goal last year that she nailed, and then we talked about this one big goal she has for this year. I loved the idea of a RevOps team, RevOps leader having a big theme to tackle each year. So I asked her to come on and kind of share those. Spoilers: last year's was around forecasting, this year's is around AI. So we're going to cover kind of both those topics here. But before we dive right in, Olga, do you want to share kind of your brief background for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I lead revenue operations at BirdEye right now, and I feel like I spent my entire life in operations. I started about 17 years ago in the marketing operations space, and ever since, stayed within operations, moving from marketing operations to sales operations, pipeline analytics, tech stack management, forecasting, territory planning, customer success operations. I do now run a global RevOps team, spanning across, the entire customer life cycle from lead to an opportunity to expansion to renewal. And I also oversee enablement here at BirdEye.
Cool. The soup to nuts, kind of the whole life cycle. That's plenty to do. That's why it keeps you busy, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. And as you said, last year, our number one focus was forecasting, as it is the foundation of how we run the business. Right. And we went from a process that was too subjective, and lacked discipline and measurements. Now we are at almost 95% accuracy across all of the segments. So excited to talk through that.
Yeah, and amazing results. You just mentioned everything that your team kind of covers. And so I was going to ask you, like, why was forecasting the most important thing of the year then? You just mentioned that, like, it's the way you run your business. So tell me a little bit more about that for folks that maybe don't have this, like, as fine-tuned. Like, how is forecasting kind of, like, guiding the go-to-market motion? Why is it so important?
Well, this is the fundamentals, right? This is how the decisions are being made on hiring, on the spend, on the targets. This is what gives the investors and the board confidence in the business. This is about essentially, do we know where we're steering our ship to, right? Do we know what our target is, and do we know how do we have the path to get there? Inaccuracy in forecasting, right, creates a lot of reaction. We don't want to be reactive in things that we do, right? We don't want reactive leadership. We don't want to be in a scramble mode and misallocation of resources. We want to get ahead of any risks. We want to get ahead of any deals that might be slipping. We want to pave the path to the target and understand if there are any deviations early. So you want to stay close and execute your forecasting process tightly to then have the reliable number that you report to the company leadership and to the investors, to the board, so that they have trust in the company that they're working with.
Yeah, that's so great. I think you hit on like the two super important points. The one, if you're kind of earlier in your career in RevOps, you might not even realize that like forecasting isn't just about predicting a number. It's actually guiding the business on like what do we actually need to do to hit the number and like uncovering gaps. And then of course just board trust too. So if the CEO is trusted by the board, they're going to be in a better mood, we'll say, and trust everyone else on the team. So that's super important as well. Okay, so tell me then, forecasting was subjective, you said, not data driven. By the end of the year, you got to 95% accuracy, which is amazing. Like, what were the initiatives in place? Like, how did you execute that?
And the way I think about it is that revenue operations comes in layers. There are a lot of layers to a successful execution of revenue operations, go-to-market operations, and connecting the dots. If your operating system is inaccurate, then every decision that is made based on it is inaccurate. If your forecasting accuracy is wrong, then every decision that is made based on this is wrong, right? So first principles is having all of your fundamentals and foundational elements tight. Um, Everyone's talking about AI right now, right? But my recommendation is don't start with AI until you are confident in your data, in your systems, in your processes, and everyone being aligned to those elements.
Mhm.
AI on top of garbage equals garbage automated, right? So first things first, um, have trust in your data, have your sales process tightly mapped and ensure tight execution to your sales process. Have the right definitions around key milestones within your process.
Mm.
Do we trust the pipeline? Do we have a definition of what the pipeline is? Do we know what the meeting set is? When are we doing the demo? At what point do we share the order form or the quote with a customer, right? Configure those milestones and have everyone agree to those milestones. So those are the sort of major milestones and transitions between those milestones that need to be programmed. Uh, last year, after we aligned with the sales leadership and the executives on the sales process, we ensured that there is a system in place, that there's in Salesforce in our CRM, we do have gates, we do have entry and exit criteria, that every stage has very clear definitions, and the transitions between those stages are also very clearly mapped, right? So you need to ensure that your systems are in place to support your sales process. Then second piece is execution. And how do you ensure execution is in place is you bring in the rhythm. Essentially, we have a calendar, and every day of the calendar stands up for something. It's either an account executive that submits their forecast, or then a manager that reviews their forecast, and then a sales VP reviews their forecast, and then that forecast is submitted, right? So essentially, every day of the week, there is an activity that is happening to ensure that the pipeline is healthy, that the deals are healthy. We look sort of into a checklist for every deal, right? We want to have multi-threading in place. We want to have mutual action plans in place. We want to have next steps scheduled. If there's no next step, there's no deal. We're looking into the calendars to ensure that we're scheduling the call. So my role is to ensure the process and the systems are in place to support that process, then ensuring that there's alignment with the key players on this, and then manage this tight execution. There are two major calls a week that we run. There's a forecasting call, where we do have finance as part of the call as well, and we sort of provide the forecast to the finance team. Another call is the big deal review call. These are the large deals that are set to close in the quarter, and we want to assess risks. We want to be able to jump into those risks early, and if we're seeing some red flags, address them early as well. That call, it's sort of like, if you think about it, it's like heal clinic, deal clinic. We do have finance, legal team in there as well, sales leadership, RevOps team. So if a rep needs help uh, on anything with that deal, we will be there to help during.
That's great. That's such a good overview. And I love, I always think of it as a pyramid in my mind around like AI readiness of, define your process first, make sure the data matches it, and then you can layer on AI. So I'm glad to hear that you're like-minded there. But going into the forecast process specifically, I think it's such a good build up. If I go back to the start, you said start with like trusting your data, understanding it. You talked about milestones and like making sure that we understand what should be happening when, that the pipeline stages and sales stages have clear entry and exit criteria. Is the point of that really so you can have trust in like the forecast weight you're putting on each stage, or is it something else?
It is also clarity on execution, right?
Mm,
So none of these processes aim to hit just one target. There are multiple things that we're solving with that, right? If you put yourself in a salesperson's shoes, there are a lot of things that we're asking them to do. They need to prospect, they need to outbound, they need to get creative, they need to do some social surrounding on LinkedIn, they need to figure out, what kind of gift to send to their prospect to capture their attention. So there's a lot of things that they're trying to do, sales methodology wise, as well as being creative. Then they also might be attending some shows, right? I don't want them to sort of worry about what stage this opportunity should be in. Am I ready to, I want this to be very easy for them and program it for them, right? So as you design that process, think about also maximizing that sales time and maximizing the output, from your sales process. So you're designing it for not just for the clarity of your forecast, but also for the clarity of a salesperson that is, sitting there trying to figure out, is it stage 3 or stage 4? Where am I putting it in, right? So you want to make it simple, you want to make it scalable and reportable.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder to be empathetic of sales users in RevOps too. It's easy to want to build something complex and impressive, but it needs to be easy to use as well. Maybe a dumb question, maybe not. When you're mapping the sales process, like how would you recommend other folks tackle this with their company? Is this something that you think is standard across most businesses, can be a framework, or are you kind of getting in with like sales leadership to understand like what the ideal deal looks like?
Look at data, right? The most of the answers are lying there in data. What is your sales cycle? What is your average deal size? How many people are usually involved in closing deals? Of course, if you're working with enterprise companies, enterprise deal sizes, your cycle is going to get longer. You're going to get more people. There's going to be lengthy legal reviews, maybe even security reviews. So you need to think through that when you're designing your sales process. On the contrary, if you're working with smaller, faster organizations, you probably don't need 6 stages, right? But
Hmm.
I would say like 6 is, that's the max that you would want them to be, right? Define that based on your sales cycle, your deal size, how many people and how many touches it usually takes to close the deal. Don't over engineer it, don't make it too long, but also don't make it too quick, because then you will lose a lot of important milestones and
Hmm.
parameters. Define what is a pipeline for you. That is a
Got it.
line in the sand that actually then um, controls your win rate. Then as you start looking into this metrics such as win rate, pipeline yield, and forecast accuracy and other ones, it is very important to figure out, what does your pipeline start? Does it start at when a meeting was set by a BDR and handed over to an account executive? Does the pipeline start when account executive accepts that meeting, or when a pipeline executive actually qualifies that meeting after it is held, right? So this what can actually, improve your win rates. Yes, it will impact your overall pipeline volume, but it will also impact your quality and win
Hmm.
rate. So this is something that you need to have a heart-to-heart conversation with your sales and marketing leaders, because everyone's going to have their opinions, as priorities might be different for those guys. While marketing might be after generating more pipeline, sales would be after, win rate. So this is where you need to agree. But again, it needs to be very cleanly and clearly mapped out for a salesperson.
Yeah, well put. My last question on the data side of the forecast process is you mentioned the importance of having trust in the pipeline data. How about like pipeline hygiene and like cleaning it up? Like, have you codified like when deals should be removed from pipeline? Like, is it like an aging thing? Is it like a last activity? How do you think about that?
We do run QA. Now we're moving to more automated QA of pipeline. Again, there's a lot of things that are coded out in Salesforce. We would not allow opportunities going into pipeline until certain fields are filled in. We want to understand. We are very closely to MEDPIC. We have our own sales methodology, but we are very close to MEDPICs. We want to have the economic buyer. We want to have the timing and the budget. We want to understand the metrics and the ROI on this on the deal before we allow that into the pipeline. Then, as these fields are filled in, and of course now they are filled in automatically via Gong. So once those fields are filled in, we then do another sort of layer of QA, which will also put some AI on top of it to help us QA. Um, so we were able to reach 35% win rates with this sort of process, right? So as being very conservative about what pipeline is and what goes into pipeline, and requiring 10 different parameters to be filled in before we allow an opportunity to get there into that stage. Plus there's also human QA and back and forth.
Hmm.
Once opportunity is in the pipeline, a rep needs to submit the mutual action plan. If there is no mutual action plan, the deal is not happening. So we do require mutual action plan on every deal. Um, and we do verify those mutual action plans as well. So the big deal review call that we have every week, we review the mutual action plans. There's a
Okay.
there's a manual QA, there's a manager QA, VPs are looking into the mutual action plan. So that is not just about sort of the pipeline execution. That again, it communicates to your forecast, right? Like if you don't have a path to closing your deal, it's probably not going to happen. So all of this milestones, all of these stages are very tightly connecting. You're
Yeah, it
not
sounds
putting
like it.
anything in a pipeline that does not have legs in it.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a mutual action plan, that's a like barrier to putting in some junk for sure. Super helpful. And then moving on to execution really quickly, I think you laid it out really clearly. My only question there is like, it always feels like a big effort to build like a new cadence, especially with busy salespeople getting adherence. Like, any advice or common pitfalls or like other thoughts around like how you got that into motion that you would advise other RevOps folks on if they're trying to do the same thing?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything new in there, but alignment at the top matters, right? For example, an actual real life example. Last year when we rolled out mutual action plans, I had to go through a lot of change management, and that was an uphill battle for me to ensure the mutual action plans are up to date and they're shared with the customer, and all of the milestones again are documented in the mutual action plan. We saw the deals were slipping because we did not have the procurement review or some legal review in the mutual action plan. We were not planning for those, so the deals were pushing out. So I was after our sellers to ensure mutual action plans are relevant, right? That was my goal. That was my metric, right? That I was chasing. It was not sales leaders' metric. It was not their
Mm.
goal. Their
Hmm.
goal was ACV. Now this year, one of their goals, the sales leaders' goals, is to ensure that mutual action plans are up to date and they're correct. That is their KPI. And all of a sudden,
That sure helps.
and all of a sudden, mutual action plans are looking great. We don't have any red flags. The flag rate on the mutual action plans dropped from like 60% to 5%. So this alignment at the top really helps. So having shared goals, um, this year, I have a pipeline goal. I am sharing this goal with the CMO. CMO is driving pipeline. I'm also driving pipeline through some tools implementation, some AI plays, right? So we have Clay, we have demand base, we're tracking signals, we are operationalizing and orchestrating those signals. So that's how I drive pipeline from the RevOps perspective, right? So having, alignment from your objectives is what matters.
Yeah, show me the incentives and I'll show you the behavior. Awesome. I mean, clearly this worked for you. 95% forecasting accuracy is amazing. That was last year. This year, your goal I think is around getting your team up to speed on AI. Tell me why this has become your top goal this year personally.
Well, what are they saying? AI will not replace a human, not yet, but a human with AI will replace a human without AI, right? That is absolutely true. And RevOps is at the edge of this AI revolution, because where, would you use AI? It's the systems, it's the processes, it's the automation, and that's our world. Analytics, that's our world. What I'm telling my team is that if you don't get on this bus, you're gonna get run over by this bus very, very quickly and very, very soon, right? AI is it's not the hype, right? It's a very practical framework that we all need to adopt, right? It's the productivity layer. So I'm coaching my team to get up to speed on the latest LLMs, right? The Claude Cowork is getting a lot of hype these days, right? There is some Clay, Claude, ChatGPT integrations that we are exploring. We're using it for QA. We're using it for data analysis. We're using it for putting together playbooks for our sales managers and their one-on-one. So pretty much every task of your day, think how you can scale it by using AI, and just layer it on top of what you do. And of course, the goal is to, and I think we all use AI for personal things, like we can summarize meetings, create some next steps from the meetings, we can use for other personal things. But how do you roll this out on an org wide level? That is the question, right? To create adoption and usage on the team level. RevOps teams, analytics teams, finance teams, I think we are getting there faster than others. But we just had our sales kickoff, and we rolled out some of the plays for our sellers, how they can use AI and LLMs to help them with account planning, account summaries, preparation for the calls, getting some signals, some alerts from their top accounts. So we're moving from experimenting to actually executing, but again, it comes in layers. So you need to have patience in rolling this out. What I'm learning myself is, AI glitches, LLMs glitch. So you need to be patient, and you need to have this sort of wide angle of vision and understanding what you're after, so you can try to use and layer, AI on pretty much, every task of your day.
Yeah. Tell me from like a manager perspective, you laid out like how should we identify where we should use AI, and I think you summarized it well. Of, like, we should think about it everywhere, and like just every task we're doing, think about it from first principles. But how about from like a team management perspective? Like, how are you getting your team to adopt? Finding the right champions. I'm not going to say forcing them to adopt and learn, but encouraging them. Like, what are your techniques here?
Yeah, well, again, mapping to your objectives, right? Think about what are your top objectives are. Say you're after pipeline generation and setting meetings. Map that workflow. What can get you to set meetings? And there are some playbooks that are available there, right? There's LinkedIn, of course. There's social surrounding. There are some creative ways to get their attention on social networks. You can use some gifting platforms to send them gifts. You can be creative in your cadences. How we, from RevOps perspective, can help them get there? It's with data and the signals. So we're using AI to help identify the right data, the right contacts. Are they showing any interest? Is their intent spiking? Are they engaging with our content? We can listen to all of those signals. We can create the people, from those accounts with the right titles, with the right contact details, right cell phone numbers, to make it easy for our sellers to reach out to them with the idea of setting up a meeting that's going to lead to pipeline, right? So just like start sort of peeling the onion, right? Our top goal is pipeline. How do we get to pipeline? Is via meetings. How do we set meetings? Is by having the right titles and having the right contact details. Okay, how do we get there? So you're just like taking a step back and like identified your workflow and just started like sort of taking those layers off, and then you land to like, okay, this is how you actually execute in the systems and with AI. Say you're after win rates, right? We need to increase our win rates. What helps us win deals? Look into your data, analyze this data. What helps us win deals? I bet it's multi-threading. I bet it's having the next steps. And I bet it's being on top of your deal, having it in the right stages, right? So that's what then you QA and require, right? You ensure that you have people in your deal. You put those gates in your system. So AI is not a tool itself. It's a productivity layer that helps you amplify and get to the decision sooner. Um, it also intensifies your world, right? Like because you can get to the decision sooner, faster, and you can deliver faster. Sort of that intensifies your world. So staying again close to the objectives and what are you measuring, how you're measuring, is the key to me.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And we're sadly almost at time here, but to cap this off, like, how do you hold your team accountable on this? Is it just in every initiative that folks are working on, you're asking, did you use AI for this? Or is there something else you're doing from like a manager perspective to try and hold folks accountable?
Yeah, AI will not replace the operators, right? It's gonna raise the bar for them. I don't know how many times I said this week scale with AI. This morning I said it twice already. We are running a massive analysis, right? We're running an analysis of more than 1 million data rows in an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to take a human weeks to do that, right? But with AI, you can do it faster. You can even run it in multiple LLMs to compare the outcomes. So don't go back to the manual world. Don't go back to how you used to do things. Question the status quo. And don't burn the midnight oil. I don't want you to work through the night. If you need to work through the night, you're doing something wrong, right? Because now with all of these automations and tools that we have at our fingertips, you can do things faster. So for every task that you do, is that analysis or account research or putting together a playbook for account managers, right? Or putting together a deal scoring document, right? Think about how you can leverage all of these resources, the new resources that we have, to get to that faster. You still need to be a human in the loop. There's no way, because again, AI hallucinates. So be patient and continue to add AI on top of your everyday workflows. We need to get comfortable with that. We need all to become comfortable with prompting and become prompt engineers and scale with AI. The third time I'm saying it today.
Well, that's a great place to cap it then. I feel motivated. Olga, thanks so much for chatting through forecasting AI and how it related to your goals last year and this year. Awesome conversation. Fun having you on. Thanks again.
Of course. Thanks so much, James.